Welcome, everyone, to this special fireside chat on the future of HR, specifically looking at HR technology. And joining me shortly will be Joelle Pang, who is the General Manager of FastJobs Malaysia, tech female founder and 2019 Entrepreneur of the Year. And she is amazing because she's paving the way for women in technology with her impressive entrepreneurship skills, where she's many startups, right? She's even done digital transformation with Singapore Press Holdings, FastJobs Asia, which is a blue-collar, workforce-focused mobile recruitment platform. And today she's GM for Malaysia and the Regional Business Development Director. So I'm going to welcome Joelle Pang into the show to join me shortly and to have this engaging conversation on technology and the human resource function. So Joelle, welcome to the show, and really super glad to have you with us, joining us today. One of the things I think that's changing in this world is, and it's very subtle, right? I mean, we look at how 20, 40 years ago Microsoft started with software and technology, and then slowly with Apple with apps, and you start to see networks, not the old networks we know of with highways linking cities, but digital networks linking individuals all over the world. And then expectations change because people want things fast. Employees want more, right? Employees started, give me a good salary, give me a nice laptop, I'm very happy. Today, no, I want recognition, I want validation, I want friendships, I want to work in a meaningful place. And as they go up the self-actualization curve, that expectation gets pushed to the companies, and companies have to give more and try to figure out, together with digital changes, physical changes with robotics, and also biological changes with IR4. All these things meshing together is creating a very messy, confusing workplace. And many HR as a function, I've seen a lot of functions like marketing sort of evolve, and they figured out, okay, how do we understand the customer so well that we're able to provide the right sort of service at the right time, at the right place for the customer. But HR itself hasn't really evolved at that pace. Love to hear your thoughts as we kick this off in terms of what you think how you think technology is sort of hitting the HR function, and what are some prevalent trends with HR and technology that you have been observing over the last couple of years, especially in your role as FastJobs Managing Director?
Yeah, so thanks so much for the questions, Roshan, and also thanks for the invitation. I'm really excited to chat with you about this topic. So I think what you just shared and the chaos, that you mentioned, it really revolves around the emergence of two groups of workforce, right? One being the millennial workforce, which is actually going to be the majority of the workforce in the future, because we are all going to grow up and we're all going to enter the workforce. And this is a group of job seekers that want to feel engaged, who want to feel like they can tell their truth and their stories, even in the place of work. And secondly, as well, is this emerging group of what we call the digital talents, people who are in the technology space, people who are in the startup ecosystem, who are constantly plugged in with, information on what's happening, who are very in tune with the trends, and very, very, I would say, focused in terms of, where they want to head in their career, which is to drive, innovation, or even some called disruption to the status quo. So definitely, I think that there's a big part of these two groups of job seekers rising, which may help to reduce the chaos a little, because it's really just about understanding what are the profiles of these two groups of job seekers. And I would say that in terms of the HR trends or the technology trends, it's very much propelled really by what happened in the past 18 months. And without dwelling too much on it, because I think all of us went through and experienced it intimately, I think that we have really seen companies, not just startups anymore, but even SMEs and MNCs, they are just pushing themselves to be at the frontier of digital adoption, as well as driving innovation, precisely because the context that the past 2 years or so have put us in. And I would say some of the trends that we are seeing, it's not just in, I think everyone talks about a hybrid workplace, where now people are starting to do a rotational schedule of working from home and working in office. But I think that when it comes to HR, it's really looking at the entire HR cycle, all the way from recruitment. We are starting at FastJobs, we are starting to see our clients being open to even interviewing candidates online. So we are talking about very traditional, a mass interview where we rent out a big space in a big auditorium, and we have hundreds of job seekers showing up to get a job. And that is now completely transformed to an online mass hiring event. And we have actually done that successfully for quite a few of our clients, the most notably Donald Donkey. And actually just interviewing alone, we have seen more than 500 of our own job seekers being hired and given a meaningful job opportunities in just the last 6 months alone. Everything done online, no longer the expectation of showing up in person just to get a job. And then that goes to the second part, right? After they do get employed, what then happens? Like, how do you keep them engaged? How do you even know that they are working, for example? And I think this is the next, I would say, challenge for a lot of employers and organizations to crack, because they are looking now at how do we build a workforce that is resilient, not just about, okay, the skills that you can bring to the table, but also what's your mindset, what are some of the skills that you can relearn or be reskilled, and also to undergo the training, really, to bring about the right kind of mindset to that is necessary for the workforce of the future. So that is on the mindset shift perspective. But also similarly, I would say that there is a much bigger push right now for AI and automation, because I think employers are starting to get used to the fact that jobs that used to be done in person may not even be possible anymore, precisely because of what the pandemic has posed to us. So I think that with this comes the IR 4.0 that you mentioned as well, where there's a lot more impetus from both the public as well as the private sector to really look at how we can meaningfully think out of the box and introduce impactful technology or digital adoption that allows for I would say meaningful progress towards the IR 4.0. And I think that this is where HR can really think about, their stakeholders. Many a times it is the business units, how they will need to hire in order to fulfill, their operational needs, as well as how do we then engage and retain strong talent that is relevant for the workforce of today. So for people who are very much in tune and plugged in with technology, very open and willing to learn new skills, because that's definitely what's required in the future of work. So definitely these are some of the trends that we do see.
Fantastic. And shout out to some of the folks that are joining us. Resh, thanks for joining us. Sashi from saying hi to Joelle, and we have another Singaporean, Joelle, joining you. Abdul Shukur, also from Singapore. So Joelle is from Singapore. I think you are still there, right? I mean, you're there at this point in time, or you're in
I am
Malaysia?
based in Malaysia now. So
You're based in
came back,
Malaysia now.
got married, came back more than half a year ago, and really, really excited for what the Malaysia
Fantastic.
market is,
So
the
you are in
opportunities
Malaysia
out
now,
there.
all right. So
I
we've got
am in KL.
and of course Hani, good morning from Kuala Selangor, all right. And so all the others joining in, we have Joelle Pang, the general manager of FastJobs Malaysia, part of the Singapore Press Holdings Group, and they do a whole bunch of very, very interesting things, including recruiting, and also a lot of work with the gig economy. So talking about those trends and technology, some of these things are right. I give you an example earlier on of how that the I mean, to some extent, employees actually created the gig economy, right? Employee A, is does 40 units a week. Employee B does 10, but they both get paid same. Employee A gets upset and says, "Look, I'm going to go out and pawn my work, and to 4 different companies, so I get paid 4 times more." And ultimately, over time, there are structural changes, because now you have to house a gig economy in your structure. But your structure is very flat and hierarchical, and gig economies float around in different groups. There is generally going to be some sort of pressure on some of these things affecting the workplace. So when you talk about bringing in onboarding, potentially people you've never met, right? I mean, you've done interviews online, as you say, into the workplace. There's going to be some cultural, structural impediments and issues and obstacles that need to be avoided. Talk to us a little bit about how some of these trends that you just talked about is affecting the workplace specifically, and is affecting the future of work, and how we think work will be different in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Roshan. I think it's really a complex issue with multiple layers to think through, right? Because I think it's also very much thinking about, how do we define gig economy? And has the pandemic actually caused us to redefine what gig economy is and can be? Because, I think that, just tackling one aspect at a time. I think that, gig economy really was pioneered by your e-hailing players, from Uber all the way to Grab, which just got listed, by the way, a company that is completely driven by, the contributions of gig economy workers. So I think that this is really where our understanding is right now when we talk about gig economy, like people doing micro tasks or being riders, drivers, or even, parcel, our delivery folks who are playing a big part right now in our food delivery and parcel delivery. But I think more and more so, given that the pandemic has really changed the way we think about work and driving us into the future of work, the gig economy is no longer just which are the jobs that we can now offer to freelancers or part-timers. But the gig economy work is now reshaped into the actual needs of the job seekers as well, because we have seen how the past 18 months has really shifted family dynamics, right? So now there may be sole breadwinners or even women who now have to juggle even more so between needs at home and also their desire to return to the workforce. And what I mean by this is that jobs that, or rather maybe myself, I could be used to a 9 to 5, Monday to Saturdays, very much 6-day work week that's prevalent in the non-executive workspace. But right now, I may just have Tuesdays and Thursdays free because the alternate days I have new responsibilities. So the gig economy needs to be also redefined to think about how can we tap on the cognitive as well as time surplus of people who may no longer be able to be part of the traditional definition of the workforce, and still allowing them to come back and be a part of our working economy. Right. And this is exciting because it's no longer just, me putting in 4 hours a day outside of my regular work hours to drive a Grab or to drive, or to deliver parcels. We are talking about people who are now being cashiers. In fact, we have quite a few clients who have came on board with our new Fast Gig service, which is really talking about shifts fulfilled rather than employees hired, And we are talking about cashiers. We even have picker packers in grocery stores, packers at warehouse to support the burgeoning like e-commerce industry in Malaysia. And most interestingly, we even have roles like store supervisors. Traditionally where you see your jawatan kosong, where you're talking about store supervisors being paid 2K a month, 2.5K a month, and they are breaking that down into shifts right now. And I think that the way we can think about gig economy really is also on the side of employers, where there's of course there's so much optimism now with all this reopening and businesses recovering from the past 18 months, but there's still that underlying strain of business uncertainty that when is the next potential lockdown that might happen with the Omicron and etc. etc. And I think that this whole part of building up a contingency workforce or a buffer workforce, and that's where the gig economy can come in. I would say really nicely, and super exciting topic because I feel like we're at the frontier of how we can look at HR tech and enabling the gig economy to really reach its full potential beyond just your delivery roles, beyond just your Grab driver roles, but really looking at how we can rethink and reshape the way we even break down roles into shifts fulfilled rather than just headcount and persons being hired. And I think this is where we talk about the other topic, onboarding as well as engagement, because I would say that the gig economy is still very much on task where onboarding may take just half an hour to an hour. Let's say being a cashier at a supermarket, I can come for training and for an hour and I'm ready to start work. Whereas if you're talking about real digital talent, like someone who is here to do corporate transformation or being a software developer, we may still be at the digital nomad, tech, digital talent freelancing basis for now, but it's not yet at progressive to the point where I can come to work for one day and then another person can come in and take over where I left off. So I think it also talks about the different varying requirements, in terms of ability as well as experience when it comes to the more executive type of roles. But we're at the frontier, and I think that the definition is all up for us to redefine.
Define. No, fantastic. And call out to a couple more people is joining us. Sashinar, good morning to you. Rohaida Ismail from Puncak Alam, welcome. Eva Lim from Slango. And Honey has a comment. She makes, employees also need to shift their mindset by understanding why people do gig work and not penalize them for trying to survive. And I think so, right? I mean, I was talking to someone who said that, they had to leave a certain job because they were doing 2 3 jobs, and that person said, no, you can only work for us. Not understanding that these things are going to be structurally part and parcel of our entire ecosystem. I think in the next couple of years, right, you'll have many different pockets where you get to influence many different organizations. Amira, welcome, says brilliant, and Zichin says good morning from KL. Completely agree that the paradigm of the 8-hour regular job is likely to end, given that our living patterns have evolved to include cover the sun shifts, non-traditional working hours, and providing freedom to work as many hours as the individual is able. Your quick thoughts on some of these comments that are coming in?
So yeah, I think that those are all really great points, right? And I think just going back to Honey's point on employers being needing to understand that as well. And I think this is really an open field right now where HR can really show how progressive and innovative we can be by rolling out new employee policies. Because I'm sure that many of you have signed off on offer letters where they say no, strictly no moonlighting. And that essentially also goes back to Zichin's point where why do we want to restrict an individual if I do have a surplus on time, and especially cognitive surplus, when we are talking about extremely skilled and experienced extremely skilled workforce. So I think that it is about progressing our HR policies to keep up with the times, and that also helps very much with the employer value proposition as well, because you're showing that you are an employer that is very much in tune with the times and is able to really drive meaningful innovation, not just with your product and services, but also internally with your HR policies and with your internal stakeholders, which is your employees, which is your bloodline and your lifeline of your company. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, you've got a special gift for everyone, right? You want to tell us a little bit about this, Joelle?
Yeah, so given that the Malaysian economy is opening up, we know that so many employers have need for your jobs, your candidates in the operational field. So FastJobs is specialized in non-executive blue collar and your low semi-skilled workforce. So we are offering 3 free job postings because we know that right now what you need to do is to hire, and we are definitely happy to share your job opportunities with our pool of job seekers. And in Malaysia alone, we do have over 1 million job seekers looking for meaningful and impactful job opportunities. So what a great way to also just bring on board some of your opportunities and help you to hire during this interesting recovery period.
Fantastic. And go to fastjobs.my and you can use the FJXLD promo code and you'll get those free job postings. We're going to take a break shortly, but I just wanted to get to a few more comments. We have Kenneth Tan from Ipoh. Kenneth, welcome to our show. And if you have any questions, just shoot them into the box below. And of course, Sashi, look into this conversation in the near future, I meant. She had an earlier comment. It will be interesting to know more about technology leadership strategy. Please look into this conversation in the Negara future, in the near future, I think. She's got probably a Basa auto play down there. We will take that thought, let's talk a little bit about technology and leadership. But one of the things I think, Joelle, you mentioned, which was brilliant, is the fact that I think, when we talk about recruiting is one space, engagement becomes key also, right? I mean, bringing them on board, how do you keep them engaged and how do you keep them totally, sort of immersed in the work that they need to do? But also, engagement means connecting with your manager, understanding, having clarity, having a prioritization, and a lot of it sometimes I think with the pandemic we lost that, right? Because even though managers did, in the past it was calling people to the office once a week and just having that 2-minute, 3-minute chat, all that sort of lost. But technology gives us that opportunity to be able to connect all this, to be able to go to the gym together, to be able to go to town halls and understand and dialogue together. I mean, all these things are critical for engagement. And so we're going to take a short break. We're going to check out engagement tool, a technology engagement tool called Happily. And we'll be right back here in conversation with Joelle Pang, General Manager of FastJobs Malaysia. Welcome back. We are with Joelle Pang, who is the general manager of FastJobs Malaysia. And there's a comment by Eva Lim while we had that break. I guess it's also partially due to pandemics, as many realize that having more than a job or income helps provide security. Yes, and I think there's a lot of displacement that has happened, right, Joelle? Because what they thought were jobs, like you mentioned earlier, right? There's automation. So you
Yeah.
realize you don't need to put a person or two people or three people. You can automate the process once off. It's a big cost, but over time, it makes much more sense productivity wise, efficiency wise, and you can run a process 24/7 potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So with that comes displacement, because people who used to know a certain skill now just lost that ability to perform it, and now they have to reinvent themselves and reskill themselves
Yeah.
to be able to do new jobs. And so what happens is they do part of this job and that job and so on, to be able to sustain themselves. So a lot of that also, I think, for a while is going to happen. I know if you look back at apparel, I was very interesting when I look back 1890s, 1900s and 1910s, where we had the hyper growth, with cars and
Mm-hmm.
electricity and light bulbs and that whole era of radio, flight, a whole bunch of hyper growth, but it caused displacement. It caused World War One, Great Depression, World War Two, and we had 40 odd years of tension before things sort of stabilized, and then
Mm-hmm.
you had a very nice era of high growth, with no issues, when people accepted the norm. And I think we're going through very, very similar times. I want to zoom in on Malaysia at this point in time, because we know across the world, HR tech, things like budaya and happily and stuff, and even your I mean, the concepts of what you guys do in terms of fast jobs and gig
Yeah.
economy management, those things seem to be norms in developed countries. But in
Mm-hmm.
developing countries like Malaysia, there's some sort of awareness, and people are still skeptical about some of these things. Let's talk a little bit about Malaysia. What are the trends, or how, I mean, are these things being adopted in Malaysia? Is technology in HR truly being adopted? And what
Yeah.
can we do to accelerate it? And what must we do to accelerate it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I think, Roshan, this is really interesting, right? When you look at the flow of time and how things are progressing. And if you ask me this question, same time last year and versus same time this year, that so much has happened, and I think that Malaysia has definitely been pushing itself to progress. So as with all things, there's always that inertia to change, right, and to adopt new technologies and new digital innovations. So I would say that even when it comes to hiring, like I still remember slightly more than 12 months ago, I was, as Fast Jobs, as a job platform, we were educating and encouraging our employers to really to use this downtime really to beef up on hiring of skilled as well as valuable talent, because jobs are few back then, and it's what we call the employers market. So you fast forward 12 years to today, the equation has exactly reversed, because it's now the employees market, because with the reopening, demand for labor and also for skilled and non-skilled, both sides of the whole spectrum really, has increased tremendously. And right now employers are fighting almost with each other, to bring on board the best talent. So I would say that really it is that growth mindset, right, that we were also chatting about at the start of our conversation, where it is very much on a mindset shift. And I think also this is why I think what you are doing at Leaderonomics is so important, because it's about equipping the talents and the workforce of today with the right kind of mindset, not just on a skills and technical competency level, but in terms of a mindset shift, to understand that to stay relevant with the times, it's not about holding on and impressing on your colleagues that what you're doing right now is super important. It's like saying that, okay, we still want DVDs, we still want CD-ROMs, when everyone has progressed to like MP3 players. And I think it's that mindset shift, knowing that to stay resilient, whether it be in terms of not just the pandemic, but with technology changes, and it's going to keep happening. So resilient to changes, and the ability to keep learning and being reskilled, and to be even open to say, hi, I'm putting my hand up for this for this training course, because I want to learn what social media even means, for example, so that I can stay relevant in the workforce of today. I think that all this is all part of where we need to be in the future. And also similarly, I think you were mentioning about employee engagement, and I think that we need to address the fact that we are going to move into a hybrid workplace, right? Because with the way the pandemic is developing, I don't think that we are going to be coming back to a yay, 5,000 employees. Let's everyone come back to office and have a big party, and let's gather by the canteen and share food. Like that's all going to change, right? So it is also, how do you then look at like technology adoption to drive meaningful engagement of your employees. And at the same time as well, I think a big part of it once again comes into personal skills, because just to share candidly, like in the past 18 months where we were all working remotely, and Roshan, as you know, I was stuck in Singapore. I couldn't come back and be with my team. So a lot of it is, how do you not be that helicopter manager, and to know that your team, your colleagues are people that you can trust, and how do you then put in place HR policies to not just address the ongoing operations, like people actually showing up for work and still doing what they need to, but at the same time to turn it into a great opportunity where you can create opportunities for emerging leaders within your team to really step up and take on more responsibilities, because they always say never waste a good crisis, right? So I think that there's such a big topic, and
Right.
I just want to pass the time back to you.
Yeah, no, and I think what you say, and I think Hani makes a very good point here. She says, that as long as the gig is not conflicting with the current job and taking away from his job, it's okay. Now, Hani is a very progressive leader, so she thinks like that. But when you look at what Sashi asked earlier on, it's like, hey, the problem is leadership strategy, the technology
Yeah.
leadership strategy, because how many HR people, how many senior leaders like Hani, who are able to sort of be able to sort of distinguish and say, hey, we need to have a specific strategy to drive this
Yeah.
this sort of agenda in terms of embedding technology to enable the workforce to move smoothly, right? Because everyone's thinking, and I think in the past, I remember at least last year, many of these learning and HR leaders were like, no, we'll just wait. And then now this year, suddenly, okay, we cannot wait. we need virtual deliveries. We need virtual
Yeah.
interaction. We need virtual engagement. We need things like happily embedded. And everybody's rushing to kind of figure out how to embed and implement these things. But that's almost like a force. It's not a thoughtful leadership
Yeah.
strategy that has taken place. I mean, so
Mhm.
how do we elevate our Malaysia, I mean, specifically talking about Malaysia now, our leaders, to adopt technology,
Yeah.
in terms of both and also to have a perspective of the employee, right? I mean, many of them are looking at it as, okay, this is business, this is it, but what about the employee's perspective of
Yeah.
how this pandemic is affecting them, and there's a lot of displacement and misunderstanding, right? That's
Yeah.
happening too, right? Your
Yeah. So,
thoughts?
so Roshan, I think just to also to really distill down, the wisdom in what you just shared earlier, I think it's really about, as employers and also as HR, how do we be more proactive rather than just reactive, right, to what the current circumstances or hiring needs. And I think a big part, going back to what you shared earlier as well about jobs being displaced because of automation and AI. I think that part of this HR or technology leadership and the strategy is really thinking about where you want your company, your organization, what's the direction that you want to grow. And I think that if you can foresee that in 3 years time, that this is the level of automation, or this is the level of innovation, or digital adoption that the organization is going to achieve, then it's about getting the entire the organization to come on board, and already starting, and once again tying it back to opportunities rather than challenge, right? So rather than thinking of it as jobs being displaced, it's really thinking about which are the key high potential talent that you definitely want to bring on board this journey to lead the organization to where it needs to be or where it wants to be. And similarly, then putting in place the right kind of recruitment as well as reskilling strategies to put in place to get the organization there. So it isn't so much about, this jobs will be displaced, then how do we respond to it? But rather, how do we already start identifying the talents and the individuals within our organization, promote from within, instead of just, recruiting someone from outside unless absolutely necessary. And I think similarly as well, then how do we put in place those engagement as well as, learning opportunities so that this group of individuals that you have identified within the organization are then picking up the necessary technical as well as people skills to be the next generation of leaders that will take our organization to ride this digital frontier, right? And I think that we can't really look at it piece by piece, but everything goes hand in hand. And even just then adopting more progressive, I would say, policies like, can we look into mental wellness in the workplace? Can we look at technology plugging in, where like, for example, at FastJobs Malaysia, we do daily stand-ups, where everyone logs in at a set time in the morning, and we give each other updates just so that people feel heard, they feel seen, and they feel like they're still motivated, and they get to have that. I won't call it FaceTime, but it's really just that I'm seeing my colleagues, right? And then, of course, planning out the rest of the engagement strategy to replace what we used to call the water cooler gatherings. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Honey has an idea, and love to hear your input. It's like one of the ways to make leaders realize it. Just whack them or hit them where it hurts most. The bottom line. Your thoughts on that?
Hit them where it hurts the most, like so, Honey, like I definitely get where you're coming from, right? And I feel that employers are already getting hit, right? Right now, the fact I believe that no one likes to scramble and to be like keep pushing themselves to change, but I think it's really just really being mindful, and I think that's why Roshan really appreciate that that this topic is something that you actually like, you actually are so engaged and interested to talk about, because I think it's really just equipping our employers with insights as well, and next steps really to be like, okay, I have this mindset shift. I believe that I want to be one of, let's say a HR professional or a leader that will motivate and take my organization to the next stage. But how do I get there? So it's about the awareness and then the equipping for application. So I think that maybe I'm more of a positive, like optimistic type.
LOL coming on. But no, I think I think one of the perspective, and Eva sort of reinforces it. I remember speaking to a Grab driver who mentioned that he took up part-time jobs as a parcel delivery when e-commerce boomed during the pandemic. It's being responsive, right? And it's what you say, like, we have to understand the employees, that we have to understand people, right? And I think Sashi adds to that is it's about balancing profit with purpose. It's very important at this point in time, and it's partly the earlier part, right? Because as people sort of evolve, we are expecting more, and organizations are evolving, are also expecting more, right? And technology is evolving, that enables you to do more, right? So with more and more and more, everything's more. At some point, there's a breaking point where we need to figure this all out, because structurally, I don't think we're structured to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about our structures, our workplace structures are the 1940s, 1950s, and with fax machines now making it faster and email making it faster. But have we really evolved to the point of this 24/7 evolving, integrated? Because customers want it 24/7. They want it now. They want it. 5 seconds? I can't wait 5 seconds. Has to be 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds or less, right? If you work at a day, you're like, oh, it takes so much to load. Oh, no way. You're gonna, right? So all these things meshed together is changing the landscape. And I want to talk a little bit about the landscape a little bit, because what is the future of work? What is this new landscape that we are talking about? And then after that, I want to talk a little bit about HR's role in that landscape. But I know people will continue to work from home. There will be a hybrid engagement. What's going to happen to the industry? I know there will be, like you said, there will be online hiring. But how is that all integrated into the current structures? The 1940s, 50s structures that we've inherited in most organizations, right? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think going back to your earlier point on everyone wanting more, right? Job seekers want to earn more, employers want more of their job seekers, consumers, we want to have everything. We want it better, faster, more high quality. So, and I think it's addressing how do we get to the more, right? And I think this is where, once again, like linking back to what we were talking about, on technology specifically. And I mean, the reason why I became so passionate about technology and becoming a technology entrepreneur myself is because I do believe that tech, it tech is just like cash or a tool, right? Where if you apply it positively and you apply it impactfully, what it really does is that it helps people to solve everyday problems in a very scalable and cost-effective way. For example, you build an app, you can service 1,000 customers. You can also service 1 million without much increase in having to build more, maybe just a bigger server to support more consumers. And that's how we do scalable solutioning. And I think that technology is going to, and why we are even pushing towards a digital transformation or technology adoption, I believe, is because of this one factor where technology allows scalability so that people can get more and enjoy more. And secondly, as well, right, which is also the more interesting part, because I'm not of the camp that says technology is and robots is going to rule the world and people are no longer going to have jobs. I actually still believe that this is where the piece on people, people like you and I, who want to be relevant, who have that resilient mindset and want to keep equipping ourselves with skill sets and knowledge of the future for the future of work, are going to continue to do that. And this is where the gig economy, or really just the freelancing or digital nomadism part comes in. Because I mean, like what Zichin said, right, which is that if we have 24 hours a day, I'm dedicating, say, 10 hours to my everyday work. But if I want to dedicate another 4 hours or 6 hours a day, I would actually love for my employers to give me that permission, to say like, hey, if as long as you are supporting organizations that do not compete directly, for example, with our organization, feel free to use your expertise to help other companies to do digital adoption or to leverage on technology, right? Because this is also a part where you can have more, because suddenly instead of doing like supporting one company, I may be able to support 3 or 4 or 5, and in this extremely skilled or specialized talent kind of space, right? And I think this is where HR can really play a part, really, because put it that way, Roshan, if I were to tell you today, or if I were to tell any of my colleagues, like, no, you cannot moonlight, you can't even take a part-time job, otherwise there will be consequences, what's likely going to happen? They're likely going to do it anyway,
or they leave.
Do it anyway, just not tell me. So my preference is always like, as HR professionals, how do we create an environment, a work environment that's safe, safe and encouraging for our employees to really to be their best selves almost, because nothing is actually going to stop that employee from picking up a new skill as well, maybe when they are part-timing, and then bring it back to our organization. So that because what we are trying to promote in the future of work are resilient employees who have the hunger to learn and to keep improving themselves, right?
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's my response.
No. And I saw a comment from Honey who says that I am right. And people are busy firefight. I'm very surprised, Honey, because I hope my employees are watching this, because they always say I'm always wrong on everything. So first time, I feel very proud that somebody thinks I'm right. So thank you, Honey, for that encouragement. But there's a question from Eva, and then I want to zoom into the HR space. What we can talk about the evolving HR function. But Eva asked about a humanizing companies, right? Would companies become more humanized as employee well-being becomes one of the top priorities, particularly weighing between the operating efficiency and the employee experiences as you budget for 2022, right? I mean, should they think about more human-centered things like engagement, things like a compassionate base recruitment and leadership, and also retweaking the organization for the employee, not for robots, right? I mean, sometimes we put employees to do things that are more efficient than robots, and then we hold them to robotic standards. But you want to humanize the organization. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest part, or rather the easiest answer to this comment is, put aside budget for mental wellness, etc., etc., because that was the whole topic of 2021, right? Where you start receiving newsletters from HR like, now you have free free counseling, or you can plug into mental wellness and mental health workshops. And I think that all that is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a strong advocate and proponent of mental health. But I think really it's also starting to think about all the other touch points that once again humanize the workplace, given that we know that people are not going to be returning to officers full strength, partly because they don't want to, and partly also because it's restrictions don't allow for that yet, and it's not safe for our employees to come back in full force. So it's really to start thinking about which are the areas of togetherness and belonging, and the activities that drive togetherness and belonging for any organization, and how do we still create that sense, that feeling of togetherness and belonging and engagement, even if it has to be done remotely. So to give you an example, right, so it's very easy to say that, okay, we no longer need social like pantry funds because no one comes back to the office, so we don't need to purchase like snacks for the office, right? But at the same time, the pantry or the canteen is where people gather and have informal conversations that then go on to big ideas, right? So it is really thinking, hey, as HR or as an employee welfare initiative, can we then channel that funds or that budget to something like, everyone receives a little care pack, in their homes, and then we dial in, let's say, to have a brown bag Friday, where they still share, the key learnings or the key wins for their team that week. And it's really thinking about all these different touch points, right? I still remember just last year for FastJobs at Christmas, one of our colleagues actually took that initiative to come up with like a care pack for all our employees, and she hand-packed every ingredient, and everyone just dialed in together, and we made our our dessert, our meal, cooked our meal together, and had a welcome drink even, and everything was in that care pack. And it was one of the most, even up to today, is one of the best experiences I'm sharing again and again, because these are the high impact moments that seem very small. And I think it's really about them, once again, being proactive and knowing that, okay, what people are still looking for is a sense of community, the sense of belonging, and the sense of being part of a team. And how do we then turn that into something that virtually we can still replicate and put forward, maybe even become as policy in the long run. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. And I saw that. I mean, I saw a company, Hanover Reinsurance, recently. They worked to pull CapEx for the employees, and then they had a town hall, and I thought it was really engaging again. And then they do food vouchers via Happily, I think, and a couple of other things. So I mean, you're right. I mean, there are simple ways, but these are very powerful ways to be able to drive this. I want to take a quick a pause. We're going to Singapore for a little bit. We're going to leap to Singapore and listen to the new Citibank Asia head, Lee Loong Nien, who was formerly the Citi Malaysia CEO. And he kind of talks a little bit about the evolving HR function. And once we listen to him, I want to get your thoughts, Joelle, in terms of where HR needs to evolve in regards to technology, in terms of recruitment, and how FastJobs is working in that space. So let's check out Mr. Lee
One of the things
from
that
Singapore City.
I've always shared with the HR function is a few key points. One, do you have, especially the HR director, do you have the ear of the CEO? You have to be the CEO's best friend. That's one, right? Obviously, the next thing is, I always ask the HR function, I shared this with my team as well, and I asked the question, what value do you bring to the table, right? And, HR has evolved over the last, I would say, 15 years, 20 years, right?
Yeah, the last 2 decades.
In the past, we've always thought HR as payroll. You only go to HR.
Administrative.
Yeah, exactly, right. When you go to HR, when you need your payslip, or there's something wrong with, there's something wrong, right? When you don't get your pay, how come my pay not in or something, But nowadays, HR has evolved. They're a consultant. They're in an advisory role. Their job is to advise. The trusted advisor of the CEO, someone who would go and talk to them, because HR would have the pulse on the ground for all the people, and go and share their own thoughts, right? They technically should be even smarter than the CEO, because they are like the consigliere, right? The person that...
Plus they get to hear a lot of information from the employees, and I mean, they get to bridge, I guess.
Absolutely,
to
right?
create that bridge that you need, right?
To me, HR is exactly that, right? It's a human resource. It's not payroll like it used to be in the past.
All right, that's Lee Loong Nien from Singapore with me some time ago, and one of the things I think he talked about a couple of very interesting things, like the HR being that partner, and one of the things I think that HR struggle with is being the translator of insights from the ground into strategic insights for the leadership team to be able to execute and chart strategy. And that's where technology comes in, right? Because technology gives you, if just like you look at the marketers, right? They get so much technology, they get so much insight in the customer. They know exactly when, they speak about Bali, boom, they add, from Facebook will be there that here's packages to go to Bali, right? But likewise, the HR person needs to have employee intelligence, not customer intelligence, employee intelligence, right? To be able to know your employees so well and be able to translate that insight, including the capability, to the leadership team, so that as they chart strategy, we can map employee capability with business kind of big business execution, right? And so, we know that. I mean, again, Lung sort of at a strategic level shared some of this. I'd like to hear your perspective at a macro level, maybe, how we can apply some of these insights. HR being a partner with the business, HR being the ears and eyes, HR being able to collect these insights and translate that into some really, your thoughts on technology and HR.
Yeah, so definitely, I was really quite inspired when I was listening to the short clip, right? And what really caught my attention was when he shared that HR can be the advisory, and this is where HR business partnerships can come in hand in hand. And once again, I think that this is a great time really for HR to reinvent itself, and to shed off, that whole not so good label that it has as a cost center and just payrolls or HR is just there to fulfill a function. I think that this is where strategic HR can come in a big way, because as HR professionals, there's a big piece to play in organizational development in terms of planning out the training and development. And in the bigger picture, what it actually does is that you are helping your organization to shape the workforce of the future, right? From the people that you're bringing in to helping an organization or helping the business units to identify where are the key gaps, or what are the people that you need to start hiring, and making those, I would say, recommendations, right, on what are the talents that a department or a business unit should start looking to bring in to help bring it to where it can be in just as short as 6 months to a year's time, right? So I think that this is where HR can really, once again, going back to that proactive rather than reactive stance. And I think that we have also seen this happening in a big way, right? And really one of the clients that has really inspired me and impressed me with their growth mindset is really Donald Donkey, by Pan Pacific Retail Management, where, as we all know, they opened their flagship outlet in March 2021, which is in that little window of time where the MCO eased off. And that only could happen because they started working with FastJobs back in October, when everything was still a doom and gloom situation. We actually conducted over 600 interviews, everything virtual, from the interviewers to the FastJobs team to all the candidates. And we had more than 300 actually candidates hired, everything virtual, so that when March came about, they were ready to go, right? And it is also a case where, HR just it seems like they're just doing recruiting and payrolls, etc., etc. But because of how we were partnering with them and how we were also looking to increase their employer awareness that they have job opportunities, it actually opened up to conversations with marketing as well, where it's like, hey, since we are doing an employer value proposition kind of messaging, does marketing want to come on board and even reach out to more candidates? Because if they are not hired, they may still become a future employee, right? A future customer, which will come to our store because they actually thought we are awesome, a great brand, So I think that this is where everything can have a shift, because right now HR plays that critical role where with the right kind of strategic experience, it helps the business units and the organization to shape that future of that workforce. And it starts with future of hiring leading to the future of work, and then prescribing the right kind of learning opportunities, growth and promotional opportunities to then build a more resilient and a more effective workforce.
Fantastic. And it's I mean, this is a really engaging discussion. Really exciting. I still got one more piece to talk about, but we're going to take a very quick break. And since it's Singapore, so let's go and do a Hokkien break this time. We will check out in 30 seconds. This very cool app which you can use to improve yourself called Nicole. So let's take a Hokkien break right now.
Jackie 啊，你有捌聽啲咧叫 app 叫 Nicole 咯
Nicole 是做乜？
唔是啦，我甲你講 app 了嘛。嘅你看啲 Nicole 你看，伊加了有真正是 article、podcast、courses 嘅啊。我甲你講啊，你愛變好命，你愛好命，
愛好名啊，定啲
你愛趁位無？
吞這類咯。
啊，所以啊，你特別用 Nicole，真係講，你睇了，你看伊 article 嘅了，你睇了，你變真高嘅，知無？
有影無？來我看
有
啲。
影你看，你看啲 article 看安怎好命，安怎趁這類，哇！呀，你睇。
你一個看，可能咪真嚟做搞。
對啦，甲你講了嘛，你咪聽，當今你特別去看，特別看個了，
啊，
睇個了，
你講你真搞啦，我
OK， 好，你先好都來。
Welcome back, and it's our final segment here with Joelle Pang, General Manager of FastJobs. If you want, we'll check out Nicole at nicole.app. Nicole.app, you can be able to get access to it, and if you use the promo code, and today is my name. Wow, how wonderful! If you use my name, not in vain, but if you use my name in the discount box, you will get, I think, a 10 or 20% discount from the purchase. So have fun with your Nicole's. Joelle, we've been talking a lot about the workplace and the changes and how HR needs to adapt and how we need to make that change. I mean, let's talk a little bit about yourself and FastJobs. What are some of your goals, aspirations, and how is FastJobs making a difference in the HR space?
Yeah. So I think for FastJobs, I mean, our vision has always been to create equal access to job opportunities for everyone. And, needless to say, the past 18 months has created a huge shift in the way people look for jobs and the way people hire and the even just people holding on to jobs, right? And definitely, I think that coming in the near future, really, I think that FastJobs has a big role to play in terms of helping more job seekers to return to the workforce, and not just in any job, but really in careers that they feel that they can grow in. And I think that it really starts with looking once again at what is the role of a job platform, right? In the past, or rather like what you said in back in the days, it's just about having a job ad or job listing, and then hopefully some job seekers will see it, hopefully employers will list it there, and magic will happen. But I think, when we talk about the future of hiring, it is really once again looking at how hiring can still happen in today's times. And just to give an example, right, I was just taking a walk down malls, I think back in July, August, and we're talking, our office is at Mid Valley, right? And it's like the most bustling mall ever. And just a couple of months back, no one was in Mid Valley. And this actually got me thinking, how are then companies, like your convenience stores or pharmacies, who are so used to putting, their vacancies or jawatan kosong signs and counting on walk-in interviews to do hiring, how does hiring happen for them still, right? And I think that was really the genesis for why we even rolled out eFast Recruit, where we did everything, online mass hiring events, completely online. And it's really just thinking once again, how do we be proactive, looking at what's happening in today's times and what's happening given the policies and the climate, and then thinking forward, be like, okay, if that can't happen anymore, what can then happen? And I think that it's in this very resource tight and full of restrictions kind of container and climate that I believe, for someone like myself, I find the most inspiration, and I find myself being like most innovative and creative, because for me, I always feel that, okay, that's a challenge. How do we turn it into an opportunity? And being a technology entrepreneur, I always believe in using tech for good. And so how do we then apply technology to solve real problems in a scalable way? And in this case is, how do we then reduce that disconnect between the job seeker and employer, such that meaningful careers and meaningful jobs can happen? And this is so exciting for me, because I feel that with the pandemic, yes, so many problems, so much chaos. But right now, it has also led us to this frontier where we either choose to really plug in, adopt technology and innovate, and then make the next future of hiring and future of work happen, or we take a step back and be like, oh, let's see what happens then, and we'll respond to it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thanks. And don't forget, everyone, that there are 3 free job postings if you at fastjobs.my and use the promo code FJXLD. So write that down, take a screenshot. I think this is valid for at least to the end of the year or so, right? So you get
right.
to leverage this over the next couple of weeks and months. Hopefully, so leverage this opportunity to get on board and understand how FastJobs works, and so on. I want to end with a piece of advice. And maybe what I'll do is I will give you some time to think about it. If you can, leave here with a piece of advice for the HR community, what sort of piece of advice would you give them? But before you do that, Lung also gave a quick, 45 seconds, his sort of advice. So let's listen to what Lung gives us his advice, and then we'll cap off with Joelle's advice to HR leaders and the HR professional and the HR fraternity. So here's Lee Lung Yan from Citibank giving advice to HR leaders.
If you have everybody that comes from the business in HR, I think you're going to have a problem, right?
Yeah,
You'll be
some
pulled
technical, you need
in
technical
all sorts of
expertise also.
So you need some base skills through HR specialists that can anchor the team, but at the same time bringing in expert resources to help the management team.
So if you could give one piece of advice to the HR function, general piece that you think is the most valuable nugget that you would leave with the HR function, what advice would that be?
I think it's not just specifically for HR. I think it's to everybody. It's like continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to upgrade yourself in terms not just within your HR function, but to start learning about businesses, learning about your constituents, learning about the clients, learning about the employees, putting it all together. And only then, when you have the whole package, you become an expert resource that you can advise senior management.
Thank you so much, Lung.
All right.
We've been speaking to Lee Lung Yan, CEO of Citibank Malaysia. So there you have it, Lung's sort of advice. Joelle, your sort of final advice as we wrap today up this special fireside chat on the future of HR technology with Joelle Pang, GM of FastJobs Malaysia. Your final take.
Yeah, so I would like to encourage everyone, especially HR professionals, to not just accept the changes. I would say embrace the changes, because by embracing the changes, you can actually have this unique opportunity to, be a critical part, be a key player in terms of, driving and shaping the future of work and the future of hiring. And I would just like to encourage all of you that, you don't have to think about what's my role to play or, what can I do, because inspiration is everywhere. Like things that you didn't used to be, that you used to be able to do and are not able to do now, don't see it as a problem, see it as a challenge, and know that your opportunity and your role to play is on the other side of your challenge when you have overcame it. So press on and be the change.
Fantastic, Joelle. Thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening conversation. I learned a ton, and I hopefully all of us who are watching, we sort of got to understand the evolving space of human resource, all the different obstacles and challenges and different permutations that are encroaching and sort of almost crushing the space, and how there is some hope as we evolve using technology, leveraging the power of what is out there to be able to evolve this space into new heights. So thanks again for watching, and this is bye-bye from us. Happy weekend. Have a very blessed Saturday and a fantastic Sunday, and we will see you guys next week. We've got something exciting in store. We've got Syed Sadiq who'll be joining us in our critical conversations, and we have a couple of others, fantastic guests on Tech Talk and some of the other shows. So we will see you guys next week. Have fun. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everyone. Learning is at the heartbeat of growth.